Welcome back to Side Questing. In this episode, I'm joined by Dr. Hugh Wilson. He's a botanist, conservationist, author, and is the driving force behind Hinewai Reserve in the Banks Peninsula. Over the past several decades, Hugh has overseen one of New Zealand's most remarkable ecological recoveries, helping transform former farmland into thriving native forest, not through intensive intervention, but often by letting nature heal itself. His work challenges many of our assumptions about conservation and humanity's relationship with the natural world. It's a super cool conversation. I was very privileged to be able to go out to Hinewai Reserve and speak to Hugh in his lovely house. He's an absolute top bloke. It was super exciting. And one of those conversations I won't forget in a very long time. Scattered throughout this video, I have, if you're watching on YouTube, I have included photos from his book, Hinewai Reflections. It's a book that Hugh has published full of his own anecdotes, his own stories, and also his own lovely drawings. So if you want to support Hugh and what the team is doing out at Hinewai, I strongly encourage you go out and purchase this wonderful book. Hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one. For people who don't know who you are, could you give us a little bit of a breakdown with your story, your history,
Sure.
and your connection maybe to Hinewai Reserve,
Yeah,
which is
well,
where we are.
Fortunately, the last half of my lifetime has been here.
Just the microphone up.
Well, it's a bit closer. Fortunately, the half of my lifetime has been here. But I was born in this province in Canterbury, but born in Timaru 81 years ago. Quite a long time ago now. My twin sister and I were 6 when we moved up to Christchurch. So the family, the hometown is Christchurch, really. And my parents were very interested in the outdoors, so it caught. And my brother Jim was a very keen mountaineer. We all became climbers of sorts, so we loved the outdoors. And I trained as a botanist and was set to work to do botanical surveys of the most beautiful places, Aoraki Mount Cook National Park and Rakiura Stewart Island, some work in Tongariro National Park, Arthur's Pass. And then finally I was set to work on Banks Peninsula. And I thought, having lived next to Banks Peninsula most of my life up till then, I thought it was just, the ecology I thought was just completely trashed. But after a year of doing my detailed, systematic botanical survey, the overwhelming impression of not what was gone, but what was left. So that, as far as we know, we've lost almost no plant species. We don't know exactly what was here, but there's a terrific Māori oral tradition about what was here. And then early European botanists collected a lot. So we've got a really good idea. And we thought that quite a few things were locally extinct. And people have discovered them again. Not just me, I have to say. But the most amazing one is a small tree. Can you believe a whole tree species got lost for 170 years and it never disappeared? I'm sure it's just been ticking over in this one little spot. It was collected by a French botanist called Etienne Raoul in about the 1840s. And he's put on the label it was in Akaroa near Shady Woods, near Akaroa, sorry. And then no one could find it again on Banks Peninsula for 170 years. And we thought at first he'd made a mistake because it is found right through New Zealand, but really everywhere, because it used to love living on the alluvial soils of valley flats and things, which is the first places that got cleared for farming, really. But then my botanical friend Melissa turned up with it one day. She ran me up and she said, I think I've found Prosper Malcuratum. I couldn't believe it.
It happens quite often.
It does happen.
So there's like a gap in the knowledge, and then it suddenly just appears, and someone's like, "Oh, that's
but
where it's been."
It is, but even so, you'd think Banks Peninsula have been so looked at.
Yeah,
and not just in my survey, but people have been looking at the plant life on Banks Peninsula for a long time. But there it was, just lurking away, looking after itself, not giving up. Yeah.
And so, were you always set on plants, or was it?
Well, I think the first interest was
in
birds,
conservation?
to be honest.
Yeah.
I was fascinated by birds. And I remember planting the whole of the side part of our house in St Albans in Christchurch with native plants, most of them from Banks Peninsula. And the idea was to get birds to come and visit. And they did, but nothing like bellbirds, or I think grey warblers and fantails are about the only native things I saw. And if they had turned up, I just would have been so delighted. I was just a wee kid. But just planting and growing these plants for the birds just woke me up to plants. I just absolutely fascinated watching them grow and what they did and how they grew so slowly you couldn't see them growing, but they just steadily put on growth and produced all our food and our oxygen. It just absolutely wowed my mind.
They do a kind of a thankless job.
They do. They do. We take them for granted.
Yes,
often.
yeah. And I guess your story is also very much connected to this place, which is...
It is very much, because I was set to work to do a botanical survey of Banks Peninsula, still thinking that the ecology had been trashed. There's less than 1% of the old growth forest left, so it is pretty trashed. But we've got at least half the bird species left. We've lost all the kakariki and the kaka and the saddlebacks and the kōkako and things like that, but we've got a lot still too. Even birds that you'd think would be so vulnerable. And really they've survived all the deforestation. They're basically forest birds, but they've survived all those disasters, and we've still got them. Some of them went down to almost local extinction. One of the obvious ones here is the tomtit, Giru, the South Island tomtit. It was uncommon for the first part of the 20th century, and it wasn't really doing too well. But now, Hinewai, for example, with the habitat getting better and better, no significant control of stoats and ferrets and weasels and wildcats, incidentally, because rats are the worst of the lot here for what's left. So even against all those mammalian predators, the habitat gets better and better naturally. Just take away the deleterious things that are slowing it down. And birds like tomtits they're just super abundant here now. Bellbirds, brown creeper.
Yeah, it's amazing, because a lot of native birds often get a rap for being a little bit not so hardy with all our introduced pests and things. But it's quite refreshing to hear that they actually, despite the adversity, they were still able to persist.
I think if they do survive it, because some didn't survive it, of course, we couldn't have saddlebacks and probably couldn't have kiwis or anything here. But all the birds that have survived, I think there's a lot of natural selection going on. They're being selected for sorts of behaviour that allow them to cope more with stoats and ferrets and even rats. But rats are the worst of the lot, I'm sure, and we forget all about rats. They're everywhere.
Yeah, they're prolific and they absolutely decimate.
They are. Am I close enough to this?
Maybe a little bit closer.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right. It's a little bit of a new skill.
If I get too close.
Yeah. Well, when did your story with Hinewai and
my story with Hinewai? Well, I was set to work to do the botanical survey.
Yeah.
It took about 6 years altogether, all on foot and bicycle, basically.
Yeah, and that was wildlife and then the plants.
It was the plants. It was specifically plants, but I regard myself as a naturalist rather than just a botanist. So lots and lots of bird observations and invertebrates and lizards and fish and everything. Yeah. So here I was doing the botanical survey and realising that, in fact, the amazing thing was not what was gone, but what was still here and just itching to get back, itching to reassert itself. And all the time, farmers were clearing karnika and gorse and goats and deer and sheep and cattle and everything. It had everything going against it, but the forest was still regenerating despite that. So I thought to myself, gosh, wouldn't it be wonderful just to look after a bit of land and take away those deleterious things and just speed the whole process, just take away the things that were slowing it down, and it would all happen faster. So that was how Hinewai started. But of course, we had to have money to buy the land in the first place, and I would never have had enough money. I wasn't interested in earning money. I was interested in doing interesting work and getting paid enough for it. So I was completely happy, but just I didn't have enough money to buy a significant bit of land. But fortunately, while I was doing the survey, in the early days of the survey, the later days of the survey, it all happened, but I think the early days of the survey I was introduced to this Christchurch businessman called Morris White. And he wasn't a big wealthy businessman, but he had set up a fund for conservation on Banks Peninsula, and he wanted it spent because it was a charitable trust. So I was introduced to him, and he said, look, you're crisscrossing Banks Peninsula on your botanical survey. Would you be interested in looking out for a bit of land which our trust can buy? And then he said, and would you be interested in being involved? I said, yes, instantly. I just couldn't believe it. It was just an amazing opportunity which I just grabbed. And so I pulled my knowledge and what knowledge I had and effort, because I was in my 40s then, I think. When was it? You have to work it out. It was 1987 when we started, and I was born in 1945. I was only 42, I think. So so I had lots of energy, and so we looked for land, we bought land, we revamped the trust, and away we went.
Then it started off with the purchasing of
It started with only 109 hectares, and so where we're sitting now is on that little farmlet. That's the nucleus of Hinewai.
Yeah.
The trust bought that in 1987. And then we did have it was only 109 hectares. It's big enough. We worked hard on it. We put our management ideas into practice, and everything went well. And we were severely criticised by our surrounding farmers because they thought we were just complete idiots. They thought, this dream about leaving the gorse alone and letting it get out-competed by natives, they just thought it was a dream. And it does sound too good to be true. I mean, we're too good to be true.
Yeah.
I mean, we're unbelievable that we even exist.
Yes, yeah.
So it shouldn't be too hard for human beings to understand that some natural things are too good to be true but still happen.
Because that's where I first came across your name, was in connection with gorse and what you'd done
yes,
with the letting the gorse persist while...
Yes, you see, we'd rather not have the gorse because it's an exotic plant. And also, it's one, even with the natives out competing it, it's still an element in the ecosystem now. It will never disappear because there's always enough disturbance for it to be provided with open habitats again, which it loves. Disturbance and open habitats, that's what it loves.
And that seeds last for a long time.
The seeds last for decades in the soil. Yeah. So it's an appalling weed for farming. I don't question it in the slightest. But the amazing things that everything that farmers were doing to this little bit of land, 109 hectares, they almost felt religiously bound. It was like a religious duty. Even if they couldn't see any benefit from it, they thought, no, we have to just keep fighting the gorse. And that's what the gorse loves, that's what it thrives on. You can get rid of it, but not on hill country like this once it's infested with it. And you'd never ever make a pastoral return to cope with all the money that you're spending on trying to get rid of it. So we weren't being fools and dreamers, we were actually suggesting a sensible way of getting rid of a gorse-filled valley like this. But I'm not criticising the farmers because there was no way they could understand that when they've been fighting gorse all their lives. It was obvious that it was just a hated weed for them, and it was their duty to fight it.
Yeah, it's kind of become quintessential with those yellow-covered hills within New Zealand.
It is, yeah.
And it shows you how bad it's been that it's been introduced, because it's just everywhere.
Yeah. But the thing is that seeing it was here on our 109 hectares, this was basically a gorse-infested farmlet with no pastoral return really at all. It was just a hobby farm anyway. But the whole valley was the same thing as well. And family after family had tried to farm it, and they all got beaten by the gorse. And then the final thing was that the land next to us was that they'd set up a big exotic forestry scheme, and that would have happened if they'd raised enough capital to do it, but they didn't. And at that point, only 4 years after we bought this land, the chance they had to put the neighbouring land up on the market, about 900 hectares of it. And we had to go along to auction. Morris White, the businessman, and he was the chairman of our trust, he died not so long ago at 96. He lived an amazingly long life and was heavily involved with the reserve.
Amazing legacy.
It is an amazing legacy. It sure is, yeah. We went along to the auction and bid for this alternative station next to us. We tried to get the whole lot, but unfortunately there was a little bit up the head of the valley here that was under several small titles, and they thought they could just get what seemed then to be just to us an unbelievably high price. So we lost out on that bid. We actually bid and successfully for about half the farm. It was one of the biggest farms on Banks Peninsula.
Really?
An area, yeah. And then we negotiated after the auction for much of the other half, but that's 31 hectares up there. It's a part of Hinewai now, which is an amazing thing because it took about 25 years for it to happen. Oh, more than that, because this was 1991. Yes, so work that out. Yeah. So
It's
by a
amazing.
whole series of events that finally came to us.
And how did you first begin to tackle the gorse? What was the process behind?
Well, the whole thing with the way we tackled the gorse was to stop fighting it, and of course that seemed like just heresy to all our surrounding farmers. Of course it did. But I said, look, I know we're right. I don't want to sound arrogant, but look, just give us 10 years and you can see what's going to happen. And they did. And now this is one of the many things I really love about Hinewai, is it is now a sizable example of what natural regeneration can do. You know, at the beginning they said, no, it'll never ever happen. You're just dreaming. So then it happens here. And then some people say, oh, well, of course it happened here because everything's favourable for it. You've got good rainfall. The seed sources are not too far away. But it will happen everywhere, just about everywhere in New Zealand, except at different paces. And we are favoured here. But it's happening dramatically fast here, not in terms of our human impatience, because it's 40 years now, but in 40 years, most of the gorse has gone to native canopy, except we had a big fire in 2011, the same year as the Christchurch earthquake, and it burned about a quarter of the reserve. Mostly up slope that was still largely in gorse, but with lots of natives coming through. And it was a traumatic experience, and I thought, well, we're set back about 20 years on that quarter of the reserve. But now it's far less than 20 years, isn't it? What is it now? 11, well, it's 13 or 14 years or something, whatever it is. My maths is not very good. And it's way beyond the point it was burnt at. There's far more natives there, because the situation's different now. There's no animals to speak of. I shouldn't say that because we've got an incipient feral deer problem. But we got rid of all the goats, which was a 10-year battle.
Yeah.
Hinewai's now almost on the point of being declared possum-free, not just from our efforts, but from pest-free Banks Peninsula's superhuman efforts. Well, no, I shouldn't say superhuman, but impressively human efforts. So everything's even more favourable now. But now Hinewai is a good example of what natural succession, natural regeneration can do.
And natural regeneration, for people who don't know, is just letting
it
things come back.
Yes, because we actually call our management, I didn't invent this word, it sounds a bit pompous, we call it minimum interference management. And it doesn't mean you're doing nothing, because you have to identify the things that you really can do which make a difference. But lots of the things people do decide they could do that they think will make a difference, like planting. I don't want to poo-poo planting either, but this is an example. They think it's going to make a difference. And it does make a difference to themselves, and it's a wonderful experience to plant trees. And I do it myself. But it's insignificant in terms of the regeneration of this land. Nature's doing all the serious work here. So unfortunately, with lots of the things we do, there's unintended consequences. The rat mustelid cat problem is an example of that, you see, because everyone thinks you should get rid of the mustelids and the cats, and they are very harmful on our native wildlife. There's no doubt about that. But in tackling, say, just the mustelids and the cats, then you bump the rats up. We know that from 40 years of observations here, we can see that nearly all the rats, all the cat and mustelid scats have got fur in it, not feathers. And then people come here and they see circles of feathers on the ground, and they say, oh, you're not dealing with the mustelids and the cats. And it's not mustelids and cats that are doing that. It's native karere, the unique New Zealand falcon, which has recolonised this place because the habitat's getting better. So we can, it's quite easy to misjudge things, and then it's quite easy to do things and get unintended consequences which make things worse. And I'm not saying that mustelids and cats shouldn't be tackled. For example, this is how complicated it is, because everything in ecology is usually more complicated than people think.
It's all interlinked in ways that you
It is
wouldn't
always
think.
interlinked. We can't sort of grasp all the interconnections and things at first glance. But just down 1.5 hours walk down the valley here, we come to the sea, and here we have penguins and black oyster catchers and all sorts of wonderful birds. And down there, the mustelids, the ferrets and the stoats especially, they do matter to the penguins. And so we do trap down there. Or we're not, when I say we, it's not just us, it's a community do it, and pest-free Banks Peninsula. So there it matters, but it's only 1.5 hours walk away, and we do things differently up here. I think we'd make things worse up here by trapping in a big way mustelids and cats. And so around here we do trap them because we deal with the rats and the mice here. So we can tackle it. That's the point. If you're going to do it at all, you have to do it holistically. You've got to do the lot. And you've got to see all the connections between those predators. They're all predators. The rats are predators too, but they're being predated on as well. So if you can seriously and practically do the lot, then that's great. but we'll never get rid of the rats with our modern technology. They're just, everywhere there are people, there are rats, basically.
Because you were saying just before we started that the native hawk was targeting mainly those invasive species.
The falcons are actually targeting
falcons,
exotic birds, but they're not pest birds. I mean, there are lots of exotic birds here, and most of them are benign. They're just a new part of the ecosystem. The other point I should make in that context is that we're never going to get the old ecosystem back. So we can try and manipulate things as much as possible, but also this is sort of minimal interference management as well. There are some things that are here to stay, and whatever you do, they're going to be here. Blackbirds and thrushes and sparrows and redpolls and chaffinches and all those birds. They're just another exotic element of the ecosystem, but it's a new ecosystem, and you can value the native stuff immensely more than that. I do, because these are New Zealand's own plants and animals. But all the same, we have to accept some of those things as being here now, and I just regard them as part of the new ecosystem now. And at the same time, it's overwhelmingly native here.
Yeah, just looking around, it's a little bit overwhelming how
so it's not a cop-out by saying that, really. It's not a cop-out, because native nature is extremely resilient, much more resilient than we give it credit for.
And I guess going forward, what is the plan to expand?
Well, we are expanding. You see, we started off with 109 hectares, and now we're looking after 1,700 hectares. It's amazing when I look back on it. And you see, we thought we wouldn't have enough money to buy the first bit of land initially, and then Tanarito Station comes up, and we haven't got a huge support base after 4 years. It's growing, but it's not huge. But somehow we managed to do that. And now our support base, we've got an immense amount of support. We send out a newsletter every 6 months, and every time a newsletter goes out, there's a Tom there, that's Thomas there.
Thomas.
There he is on the balustrade. Come over here, Thomas. He lives here. He looks out. He owns this house, to be honest. There he is. Hello, tēnā koe. He always checks up on the visitors. Well, he's put me. What was I saying?
About the expansion.
The expansion. Well, the expansion is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It wasn't just 4 years after we started, 1991. We became 10 times bigger just in full swoop. And I still don't understand how we did it financially, but we did. We had a fundraising and tried to see if we could raise enough money, and we did.
Yeah.
And since then we've added more and more every time. I'm not saying we've just grown bigger for the sake of getting bigger, but there's lots of land around us, adjacent to us, that make a lot of ecological and management sense. And we want to be ready to jump if those opportunities come up. And they have come up again and again. Sometimes they fail because the vendors have got dollar signs in their eyes. And in a way, we're spending other people's money. We've got to be very careful not to go way above a fair market price. I also happen to believe the whole notion of owning land is just a Western...
Yeah, it is crazy.
Craziness.
Yeah.
The whole notion is ridiculous. Yeah, little monkeys like ourselves live a few decades, and we think we can own this whenua as if it was sort of a handbag or a hanky or something. It's just completely ludicrous.
Yeah, it's very backwards.
Yeah, and it's a total misunderstanding of our place in nature, I think. Yeah.
And it makes us disconnected from it as well.
It does.
I feel like
it does.
Disconnects you from...
And it makes you feel as if it's a sort of a commodity which you sell and trade and everything, almost like slavery in a way. That sort of nonsense. But this is the land itself, which is our sole sustainer, and we just treat it as if it was something you can buy and sell. I just think it's completely crazy. Yeah, but you have to go along with it because that's the way our society operates. So we do buy the land, but we don't actually feel as if we own it. People come here and they say, "Do you own this land?" And I say, "No, I don't own it. You don't own it. No one owns it, or everybody does. You take your choice."
Yeah, one of the two.
Yeah.
Because it's becoming more of a thing, people wanting to, especially in the States, pushing towards the sale of their national parks, and people saying, well, if everyone owns it, how can I sell my part of that?
Yeah.
And it's so disheartening. It's nice to see that they're the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Which is this and what this stands for.
Yeah, and I don't want to labour the Māori side of things. I'm very interested in the Māori language and Māori tongue and everything, but it is very interesting that that they did have a completely different attitude to the land, and largely still do, but you can't say that in general, really. I mean, there's plenty of Māori capitalists and entrepreneurs and things, but the very idea that the name for land is the same as the name for whenua, for placenta, that's so telling, actually.
Yeah.
Because you just regard it as the same thing. It's our soul sustainer, like a mother, and it sounds airy-fairy, but it's very profound, really.
Yeah, it certainly can teach us a lot, I think, their worldview.
Yeah.
Have you seen that with the success of this, that it's been tried to replicate around the country? There's been
and I shouldn't claim too much credit because it was happening anyway.
Yeah.
And I certainly wasn't the first to say, leave gorse alone, it will regenerate into native forest. But people seemed scared to do it. Ecologists knew that.
Yeah.
And there was one farm in particular up in the Marlborough Sounds, which I was very interested in, Jerry and someone. It was a couple, and they had this farm on one of those long peninsulas that juts out into Cook Strait, with the drowned valleys in between. I forget exactly which one it was, up near Dreville Island somewhere. And they just decided this was completely unproductive pastoral land. And they thought, well, we will have to have a complete change of direction. And they went into sort of a green, low-key green tourism, and they just let the whole of their farm regenerate into natives. So I certainly wasn't the first to think of it. But at the same time, it's so good having a sizable example now.
Yes, yeah.
Down here as well.
Big proof of concept.
Yeah, I think so.
Because so you could say if it's one other person, they're like, oh, that was just a fluke.
Yeah, yeah.
You did something different to...
Well, it was different for down here, that's for sure. Yeah. That's why. But the nice thing is that all the farmers around us, even the ones we don't, well, we get on with nearly all of them. Yeah. But one or two we don't get on quite so well with. Even they don't deny what's happening here. Yeah.
Well, because you look and the proof is there. It's hard to... Yeah.
Except they're just seeing it in the one moment, aren't they?
Yeah.
But the good thing is we've been scientifically monitoring it as well. So we've got photo points and data and everything. So, and then here's a nice example. One of the sons of one of my farming neighbours, he was living in Australia. He came back for his 50th birthday here, brought some Australian friends with him, and some of his family. And what they wanted to do, what Chris wanted to do, was to walk up through Hinewai. And I met them and walked with them for about an hour. And then we stopped in the beech forest over there, at the top of Beach Terrace track, and they were asking questions, and there was a pause. And then Chris, son of this farmer, said, look, I just want to say that this is staggering what's happened here. I was brought up here and I've watched all this happen. And when I was a child, this valley was just a sea of golden gorse. And look at it now. And here we were sitting in the bush with birds singing and bellbirds overhead.
It would have been pretty overwhelming, I think.
Yeah.
You often, like you mentioned before, they're so slow. Well, some of them are so slow growing that you have to come back to them.
Yes, well, we think they're slow growing, but that is actually another myth in a way. Here's another example about growth. People say all natives are slow. Some of them are a bit slow, but not really. But we had this big disaster in 2021, December 21. I had this immense deluge, just locally, in the area of Banks Peninsula. It sent huge landslides down and gutted the streams. So we were left with this immense area of bare ground, which was being colonised by gorse, because it's a seed bank, but also by natives galore as well. And we were working over on Waterfalls Track just last month, and we were standing on the slip. And there were ngaiol trees and lemonwoods and mahoi and wineberries twice as high as we are in 4 years from germination from seed on a bare surface. And that, you can't tell me that's slow.
Yeah.
So people do say, sometimes they say, oh, it's lovely now, but wouldn't I love to come back in 100 years? And in fact, you see, we've got it all here. We've got old growth forest here as well. We're less than 1% on the whole of Banks Peninsula, but Hinewai's got 4% of its areas under old growth, mostly beech forest. So it's all here. They can see it. They don't have to wait 100 years, and they'll be dead anyway. So enjoy it while I can now.
Yeah. Have you found that your relationship with Hinewai has changed as it has changed as well? Or has it sort of stayed the same and you've had...
It was like a dream come true for me. So there's nowhere else I want to be then, and nowhere else I want to be now either. So in that sense, it hasn't changed at all. But it's interesting, things do change. I do remember the intense excitement at the beginning of looking after land and at last being able to put some of my conservation ideas into practice on land that we were looking after, we had to say over. And that intense excitement has dwindled away. I think it's a wee bit like a relationship, isn't it? There's intense excitement at first, and in the long run, what's left is actually better, I think, really. Better over, well, who can judge, but... But there's a huge familiarity now, you see, with it. But I absolutely love it still. So you can be familiar with someone or something and still love it absolutely. So that's what Hinewai's like for me too. And in many ways, things are better in many ways. I'm so familiar with it, I just know it better. Mm.
And it knows you too. Thomas?
Yes, Thomas coming to check on. There's a Harrier hawk.
Yeah, I saw it fly by.
Yeah, so I think what is left is actually better than that intense excitement at the beginning. And also we've made some mistakes, but mostly what we've proposed has happened, and that's very rewarding and satisfying as well.
Yeah, it's sort of like a little bit of an I told you so.
Well, I'm afraid it is a wee bit like that, because you know when some of the farmers said to me, they said, "Look, how can you be sure that the natives will take over the gorse?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure of anything. You can't be absolutely sure of anything, but I'll tell you how sure I am. I'm as sure that will happen as that the sun will come up tomorrow." And it sounds so arrogant and know-it-all, but that's how I felt about it.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And so the makeup of Hinewai in terms of forestry, is it mainly a beech forest?
Oh, no, it's much more. It's interesting because on the whole of Banks Peninsula, this is the only corner where beech naturally occurs, just in the southeast corner. And otherwise, all the rest of the forest across Banks Peninsula is podocarp hardwood forest, with 4 main podocarps, 2 tōtara, kakatea and matai. But just in this corner we have beech forest, but we also have podocarp hardwood. We've got almost no podocarp hardwood forest left, but we've got some big ancient podocarps, singly ones, and small groves left. So the beech only was a dominant anyway above about 200 metres, and we go from subalpine tops to the sea now, so we've got a huge range of vegetation types and ecosystems and things here. But the beech is a very important one for us because it's so, on a Banks Peninsula scale, so special. Mm.
Oh, it's very fortunate that it's become locked up. And
yeah, it sure is. Mm. Yeah.
It's very, very cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah.
I had some other questions that I had for you.
Well, I'm probably talking too much. You ask one question, I go rabbiting on for that.
Well, I'm always interested to hear like personal stories and anecdotes from people because they often share what is most passionate for them in those moments. I guess ask you for some stories, maybe an angry farming neighbour or.
Well, you can edit them out too if you want. Well, there are some funny stories about it. Well, one of the neighbours who I get on very well with now, and I always did in a way, and he always used to say he'll get his back up about things, but he will never hold grudges. This is my neighbour Graham. But after about 10 years, he was just as critical and just as sceptical as everyone else. But don't tell him that. No. But one day we're up on Brochus Road, and he keeps changing the subject, all sorts of things. And then he all of a sudden he said, and look at this, Hugh. He just waved his hand down the valley. So Brochus Road's up there, and you're looking at the whole valley regenerating into native forest. He said, look at this, see all the natives coming through. He said, I told you this would happen. She said that. And you don't argue with him. He just said, oh, no, that was quite right, Graham. That's absolutely what has happened. But the other nice anecdote, not just Chris taking his family and friends through the bush and commenting like that, but when they made, I don't know if you've seen the video that they made about Hinewai Fools and Dreamers. Seen
yes.
It? Yeah. Well, the makers of that little film, they wanted a farming perspective. And they asked if I'd look for a farmer who might do it. And I thought, well, I'll grab one of the farmers who's been most sceptical so he can take another point of view. And so I got Bob Masefield from Goffs Bay, just the next valley over. And I thought, it would be interesting to see what he says. He was totally positive. and you look at the film and you think, if you know Bob, you think, well, I edited all the negative things out, but he didn't say anything negative. And when I met him the next day and I hadn't seen the footage, and I said, Bob, thanks very much for agreeing to do that. He said, well, I haven't said everything positive, he said. he was amazingly positive.
Yeah.
So that's just so good.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
So that being nice behind your back, but to your face there.
Yeah.
It's almost the opposite of what normal people do.
Yeah. Well, even the farmer who, the name Fools and Dreamers came from a farmer who, in the second year, came to see me. When it was the very beginning, he came to see me because we put something in the local Akaroa Mail, the newspaper. And he was just absolutely appalled. He wrote a letter to the Akaroa Mail saying that we were complete idiots, fools and dreamers, that wouldn't happen, and even if it did happen, it would take 200 years for even to show any difference at all, and the gorse would win. All this, he went on and on like this. And then 2 years later, he knocked on my door in the old earthquake-damaged house, and he said, Hugh, I just want to say sorry, I called you a fool and a dreamer. And I said, no, that's absolutely fine, Dave, come in, have a cup of tea. And he said, oh, well, I'm just saying I can see it is happening. He said, it's only been a few years since I said that. And my farm, I'm not going to stay here fighting gorse all my life. I'm putting it on the market. Just in the next valley, that would be bush now if he'd managed. And he would have been getting carbon credits if he'd wanted to. He would have been making more money alone out of managing his farm like this than he would ever make out of pastoral farming on gorse-infested land. So that message is getting through bit by bit.
That was something I wanted to touch on, was the carbon credit side.
Yeah.
Hinewai. Because I didn't realise that there was minimal carbon used to get it to this state. Is that correct?
Do you mean minimal carbon credits or minimal?
Minimal carbon used, like
used.
Well,
I haven't got a self-righteous leg to stand on now. I used to be quite self-righteous and try not to sound self-righteous. So I've always hated the motor car, I have to say.
Yeah.
I just think it's just been a complete ecological and human disaster. Because it's just an extreme example of I'm going to sound like I'm moralising now. But it's just an extreme example of thinking that what we have to do is make life easier and easier. And I don't want to make life easier, I want to make it better. And it's completely different. And I was a mountaineer, so it's obvious I thought differently. You get rewards out of huge effort, that's what I think. And I'm not saying everyone has to put in the effort, but they don't have to let machines do everything for them, thinking and everything. I think we've just lost our way over all that, and the car was one of the really profound starts of it all. But now I haven't got a self-right. You see, I rode my bike and I walked, and when I needed to, I took public transport. And it was fantastic. I would never have any regrets. I'd never live my life differently than that again. I haven't owned a car since my one car when I was back in my 20s, and never had any regrets. But now I'm getting old and I can't do it exactly what I used to do. I still bike to Akaroa and back, but I don't bike to Christchurch and back anymore. It's just your body just tells you can't do it. Oh, you probably could do it, but you'd probably die in the attempt. So now I'm riding in cars. Yeah, every now and again. Yeah. So I can't. I've got no. I have to be less judgmental. Even quiet thoughts to myself, I have to be less judgmental.
But that was sort of baked in, that philosophy to this.
Yeah. But I think I tried not to tell people what they should do. But I've never regretted deciding to live my life as car free as possible. It's been really fantastic. It keeps you fit without even thinking about it. You don't have to go to the gym or anything. You just are naturally fit because you're using your own body to move places. That's all you have to do. But that's not carbon credits. The carbon credit thing is interesting because we did use a minimum of carbon credits, but we use, every member of this community is carbon dependent.
Yes, yeah.
And even the food I eat is all carbon dependent. We're just so addicted to fossil fuels. It doesn't have to be like that. We could do it a lot differently. I'm hoping we will realise we have to after this latest nonsense.
Yes, yeah.
But we see we used brush cutters to cut our tracks and chainsaws when we needed them, but tried to do as much as possible with hand tools and not using carbon, fossil fuels. Yeah. But then people came to us and they said, you could be claiming carbon credits for this natural regenerating native forest. Well, actually it wasn't easy because it's very messy and it's not easy to measure. And so they go to the absolute obscenity of planting pine trees for carbon sequestration. You know exactly when you plant them, you can measure them, you can do it, there's a graph showing how rapidly they're sequestering carbon, but in actual fact, what they're doing is sequestering carbon very rapidly for the first 20 or 25 years, and then the carbon curve drops away because they're respiring more than they're fixing in photosynthesis. Whereas the native graph just keeps climbing up and up and up, passes the pine curve in about 20 years, just keeps going up and up and up. 100 years it'll still be going up. So there's no comparison. And then on top of all that, you get all the biodiversity pluses for native forests rather than planting pine trees. So, but we're not talking about a timber crop, you see. Yeah. We're talking about a carbon sequestering permanent forest. It's ecologically, it's just absolutely, I don't know what, I haven't got a word for it.
Yeah, disastrous.
Yeah.
Because the pine needles do their own damage.
Well, the whole thing does their own damage. And pines is one of the most vigorous weeds we have to compete with here. So I'm fighting this weed just like the farmers used to fight gorse, but we're winning. We'll get rid of the pines. But if we didn't, just like gorse, they'd be a part of the ecosystem then. Every time there's a big slip or a fire, there would be a major colonising species instead of carnacoon, marnacoon, coprosmas and things.
Have you had to have a big battle with the wilding pines?
Well, it has been a big battle, but mostly because we inherited pine plantations, one of which we felled and got quite a lot of money from as a timber crop. And we wanted to fell it as quickly as possible, so we did that. We sold it to a company, and they harvested it in a fairly good time. But when you harvest that and you don't put stock onto it, you get millions and millions of pines coming up, just like a gorse weed. That's what it's like. Yeah. So we have had a long battle, but it is a winnable battle. Yeah. I mean, we're not daunted by it. It's just a lot of work. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of talk around it nationally. Particularly in Central Otago, is a massive issue.
With the wild, you see, that underlines how stupid it is, because they talk about planting pines for carbon sequestration, and then we've got this massive wilding problem. So if they were really serious about thinking pines and Douglas firs and larches could sequester carbon for us, which they do, they'll just stop fighting the wilding pines, which would be an ecological catastrophe, and it may be unwinnable anyway. So, and then you can't measure it because it's all just happening haphazardly. But the thing is, we do get carbon credits. When people came to us and said, you could be getting carbon credits, I initially said, and just sort of solve people's consciences and just go on living the same fossil addicted lives they've ever lived. And we'll sort of pay for their consciences, like religious, what do we used to call those things you used to buy for save your soul? It was like
an indulgence.
Indulgence.
Yes.
That's what it was. But in actual fact, it's even messy as it is and difficult to measure. You can claim carbon credits for native regeneration, and it's a huge economic push for landowners, farmers who have got gorse gullies which they keep fighting because they think it's their religious duty. They can say, no, we're just fencing this off, take the stock out, we'll let it regenerate and we'll measure it and we'll claim carbon credits. So it's a big economic push for a lot of biodiversity gains.
Yeah, as you see more and more of it, I think.
Yeah,
and there's a sort of a nice shift away from the pine aspect, Absolutely. Which is quite nice, and I'm very much for that.
Sure.
Especially after being here.
Yeah, and the carbon credits have helped us hugely in our land purchases as well.
Yes,
because all our carbon credits just go straight into our land purchase fund, which is what they should be doing, because then you've got more land to sequester more carbon.
For more carbon credits, that's sort of like a Ouroboros almost. Yeah.
But it's hard to get your head around. It's a very messy, complicated process.
I wouldn't even know how to begin to sort of work out the carbon.
I wouldn't know how to begin to explain it either. I've been dealing with it for 30 years now. Yeah.
On a personal note, you've done a lot of books with lovely illustrations. Yeah. And was that something that you wanted to do as like a hobby, or was that something that you pushed for? And
no, I didn't even push for it, and it wasn't really a hobby. It just happened. Really. Well, that happened, I know how it started. Well, first of all, the very first book I ever wrote was because I was sent off at the very beginning of volunteer service abroad to Southeast Asia, and I lived a year over there as part of the school leaver scheme. And it was just a mind-blowing experience for me. And it's shaped my whole life too, because I've still got friends over there I've got Kalabat friends in the middle of Borneo who send me letters and things, and it's just amazing effect on your later life and on your life then. So I wrote a book about that, and that was just sort of, I thought, I'll just try writing a book for my journals and see what it goes. And someone said, you should take this to a publisher, and then took it to the first publisher. It was Reed. So, do you know a publisher called Reed? It was a famous New Zealand
I don't think so.
publishing firm. They don't exist anymore. And so they published my first book when I was about 22 or something. So that was pretty exciting. But then after that I was doing these botanical surveys and publishing as a scientist, scientific papers. But then I thought, well, that's not enough. You want to put out the information to just people who are interested.
Yeah, your layperson.
Yeah.
And get them excited about.
Exactly. So that's what I did. That's when I really started drawing again in a big way to illustrate the plant identification manuals.
Yeah, we were just commenting that it's so nice that you actually drew the plants as opposed to just take a photo of them.
Yeah,
and then
it's different, I think.
paste them in. It's much more intimate, I feel.
And yes, I think so. And you can also bring out in a drawing, bring out things that matter in terms of identification, characters and things. Yeah, photos are great too, though. I think.
Yeah, that's really special. And do you think you'll continue producing books as well on the side?
Oh yeah, well I've just produced another book now. Some people talked me into gathering some selection of my pictures together, and it's called Hinewai Reflections. And I thought, really, I don't think this is a good idea. They talked me into it, and they also talked me into it by saying we can make it a Hinewai project. And our brilliant financial officer, he just, I don't know how he did it, he wasn't really twisting their arms, he just approached a whole lot of Hinewai supporters who seemed to have quite a lot of money, and he said, look, we're not pushing you into this, but would you like to support this project? Because if we can fund the publishing, then all the proceeds from the sales will go straight into the land purchase fund. Yeah. And then that's when I thought it was probably quite a good idea too, so I agreed. And it has been an interesting project, yeah. But it slowed me down for the book I was supposed to be working on, which is called Hinewai, Her Nature and Story. That's the working title. And I'm quite looking forward. I'm working on that now, but that took a lot of time.
Well, I guess before we finish up, like what's next for Hinewai? Are there any new land parcels that you're looking at, or is there?
Well, we've just bought a new bit of land. We've just added 77 hectares. And in fact, it's been a big thing over the last few weeks because we've been putting a new track up to the highest point. It's this gorgeous viewpoint. And it sort of forms the eastern sky. And you can't see it from here because Mickey Knobs, there's Thomas back again. Mickey Knobs in the way. But it's a beautiful sort of isolated peak with a rugged little ridge leading up to it. And it forms the eastern skyline of Hinewai from any angle in the Otanerau Valley here. So we've added that. That was bought from a neighbouring farmer. Yeah. So there's a lot of work involved in that, but it's all very exciting. Yeah.
And it also should be said, it's not just you. There is a massive team behind.
Yeah, well, there's four of us who are actually working here, and we all get paid now. And I said, when I was old enough to have a pension, I said, okay, well, I don't need to be paid anymore. But all the other trustees said, no, of course you get paid. You're working still. So I get paid and get a pension, so I'm extremely wealthy.
As you should be.
But fortunately, my will leaves everything to Hinewai. So I didn't argue with them. I just thought, well, I'll take the money and it'll all go to Hinewai anyway. So four of us get paid, and I've got the best team I've ever had, I would say.
Amazing.
There's myself, who's certainly not doing quite as much physical stuff as I used to do, but I'm still working away.
Yeah.
And then there's Paul, who's been here for about 20 years, in his 50s. And then there's these two younger ones in their early 30s who are just, I couldn't ask for a better pair. They're just so good. So we that's how all the work's done. We use very few volunteers. It's just so difficult using volunteers, we've found.
Yeah. Is that just because you have to upskill them?
Oh yes, you have to upskill them.
Competing ideas.
It's just a mess, really. Yeah. And every now and then you get brilliant ones, and we have got one or two brilliant ones who help us still. But we get, I would say every day we would get 3 or 4 offers of help, not to join the team, not to be assessed among everyone else. They just want to come and help, which is so lovely, but it's just completely impractical.
Yeah, I suppose, it's like they don't really know. Some people just want to get stuck in.
Yeah, which is terrific, but yeah. And I know some of them would be brilliant. I mean, if Max and Ash, the two I've got now, had just come along as volunteers and I'd said, no, it's impractical to have you here, well, I'd be missing out. But because they applied for the job and we assessed them against everybody else, and we just
And you knew what you were looking for, and they fit.
Yes, and
the
they
criteria.
just fitted it, and they just lived up to every expectation as well. So I'm sounding sort of enthusiastic about them, but they've been so good that it's been.
Well, I hope they see this.
Well, I do keep telling them how good they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what does a day-to-day look like for
A day,
for
well,
you and the rest of the team?
Yeah, but normally, like at the beginning of a week, we'll just sit down and have a chat about what the urgent priorities are, and it all depends on the weather too.
Yeah.
So the weather forecast and the list of priorities, and we never ever get everything done. So it's just a matter of prioritising them, depending on what we can do with the weather, and then we just have a work program for that week, and just every day we don't get up that early. Get up at 7, start about 8:30, and work all day out in the bush on all sorts of work faces, tracks, weeds, birds, all sorts of things. Yeah. But there's so much work, we just never get it finished.
Yeah.
But we do pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You spoke this morning. We spoke on the phone. You recorded the weather this morning.
Yeah.
Have you been doing that for a long time? And do you
Yeah.
have a long?
Yeah, for 40
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. So that must be an amazing data set.
It is an amazing data set, and it's very interesting, not just from rainfall, but from climate change as well.
Yeah.
For a while, weather's so messy that even after 20 years of records, even a major warming trend, you don't know whether it's significant or not. And I tried to, I'm not a good mathematician, but I tried to get people to look at it, see whether they could statistically assess it and get some decent hard data out of it. But after 40 years, there's some really noticeable trends.
I bet.
Even just, I graphed the snowfalls the other day, and again, there's nothing to say that we won't get a massive snowfall next winter, but the snow's just been dwindling away. We get snow every year, but for the last several years, there's just been tiny skiffs that melt away straight away. So that's interesting.
Yeah. What was the people who worked on that data set? Because I would be very interested to have a look.
Oh.
Myself.
Oh, would you?
No, well, the person that has done some work
actually,
with it. Yeah.
Well,
I'm not very good at maths either, so
No,
it'd be useless for me.
Well, even Ash. Oh, no, Ash is not very good at maths, but Max is. And he tried to do something with our bird data, which is equally messy because it's all to do with observer bias, and it's just so complicated. But and we've had several office people who think, oh, we'd love to get our hands on that, and we haven't had much productive results.
Right. And just before we finish up, because I know you've got to publish a newsletter today, where can people?
I don't have to finish it today.
We're working on it.
The deadline's the 11th.
Oh, right.
But we'll be working outside in a week, so.
Yeah. How can people support what you do and also keep tabs on what you do for people who want more information about the lovely work you guys do?
We do send this newsletter out, and so we keep a mailing list, all done by hand. It's not digital or anything. All these addresses are cards and shoeboxes. Basically, it's very efficient though. And we have that's what we do use volunteers. We have big work parties to address the envelopes, and then feed them into the envelopes a week later or 2 weeks later. So we do use the volunteers for that, but mainly organised by my sister, Margaret, who's just sort of like a Christchurch agent for the reserve and living in the city. Yeah. So they can get on the mailing list, that's no problem. There's no subscription or anything. You can donate if you want to and if you can. But that certainly feeds them the information.
And is that just on the Hinewai website where they can do that?
We do have a website. It's pretty hopeless. And we're just about to revamp it.
Cool.
But I'm not even quite sure what's on it at the moment. But the newsletter will be mentioned for sure.
Right.
And the newsletter is readable on the website as well.
Yes.
You can read it online.
Okay.
But fortunately, very few people say, oh, you don't need to post it to us, we'll read it online. Because it's completely different I think it is.
It is exciting getting mail and opening it up and having a look at.
Yeah.
Because you spend a lot of time doing it, so it's nice to have that.
It is nice, yeah. Well, we're just keeping some of those old ways alive, again, without trying to be too judgmental, but I think it's important. I think we're losing so much creative stuff.
And so many skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the whole skill as basic as handwriting is disappearing.
Well, I hope you didn't judge my handwriting in the letter I sent you.
No, I think your writing was pretty good, wasn't it? I can't. Well, I'm enthusing about the other two, but they have good handwriting as well, which is, and for their age group, I think it's getting a bit unusual.
Yes, yeah. And people can also buy your books as well, and that's a direct way to
Yes,
support.
except the big one I did on the plant life on Banks Peninsula is completely sold out and still being requested. But if we publish it again, it's just ridiculous. That printing costs have gone up so much. It could be done overseas. That's what we might have to do in the end, but it's a pity though.
Yes, yeah.
It's done by Caxton's in Christchurch, a publisher in Christchurch. Or a printer in Christchurch. The publisher's actually a little, very small publishing group.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share before we finish up, Hugh? I'm conscious of not taking up too much of your time.
I can't think unless you can think of.
No, I've exhausted my questions.
That's good.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for spending the time. It was
good.
such a fun chat.
Good.
And I hope it wasn't too...
I hope it is close enough.
No, you were good. I was keeping an eye on it. Yeah. And thank you so much for the work that you do, you and your team do, and your enthusiasm around,
it's a pleasure.
Around this. You are.
It's amazing if you find just the job you want to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be good if everybody did the work they wanted to do? You got paid them just a sort of equal sort of living wage.
A fair
wage.
Compensation.
Yeah. That would be something to aim for. But I've been lucky. That's why I've been very lucky.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Well, good luck to you too.